All right, this is Quentin from ServiceNow, and this demonstration or recording is a deep dive on an architecture solution to exchange data between Azure, Microsoft Azure Event Hub to ServiceNow. So I'm gonna walk you through the different capabilities and options to be able to send over from Azure to ServiceNow a large amount of data in real time for any event that's being created in Azure Event Hub, how we can replicate and feed tables in ServiceNow in near real time, and especially without impacting the performance of your ServiceNow instance. There is other ways to achieve the same goal using REST API, but here that solution leverage the Kafka native protocols that offer way more speed and scalability, and also it doesn't impact the performance of the instance because the messaging bus, the Kafka cluster at ServiceNow sits not directly on the instance. So we kind of protect your instance by offering you the Kafka native protocol. So maybe let me step back a little bit, talk about the use case. So I'm talking to a customer who wants to send Azure Event Cloud data. So they have probably a virtual private network in Azure, and they are, receiving or creating Azure event to Microsoft Azure Event Hub. And it could be monitoring data, any type of event, could be devices generating event, could be logs. I'm not gonna dive into the functionality of Azure Event Hub. Let's say it's monitoring alerts or outages record, whatever data. But imagine that on the right-hand side, this is the customer of ServiceNow. You are using Microsoft Azure Cloud and you have Azure Event Hub, and you want to replicate the data in real time to ServiceNow because you're leveraging some workflows or some ServiceNow capability, and for that you need the data in real time. So what I'm showing here on the screen, on the left-hand side, we're showing that there is a ServiceNow gateway, and these come with our functionality Stream Connect. Basically, what does that mean in short? When you purchase our Stream Connect offering, we enable access to our Kafka infrastructure, and we publish Kafka endpoint. We call it ServiceNow gateway. And what that means is now you can interact with your ServiceNow instance using the Kafka native protocol instead of using our table API and using the RESTful API, or doing maybe manual import of data, and so on and so on. So that Stream Connect is literally opening the door to Kafka, so you can have connectors send data over ServiceNow using the Kafka protocol. On the right-hand side, it's Azure Event Hub. So Azure Event Hub, I'm by any means an expert, but it looks to me like this is a piece of their platform where customer can store events and trigger action based on those events. I don't know, I'm not sure exactly the definition of event, but could be any kind of JSON payload from what I'm seeing. The beauty with Microsoft Azure and Azure Event Hub, they also give the ability to communicate to specifically the Azure Event Hub queue from the Apache Kafka endpoint. They provide out of the box the Apache Kafka endpoint for each of the Event Hub you create in Azure Cloud. There is a dedicated endpoint, specific URL and a port. So what we can do, because both sides is leveraging Kafka, well, we can replicate topics from one side to another. the particular one of the client I'm talking to, they want to send data from the right side to the left side, but we could do both. It's just a native concept of Kafka. We can publish message coming from this topic, replicate them to that topic. In this particular demo I'm going to be showing, events are created on the right-hand side, basically I have Mirror Maker, which is provided with Apache Kafka. I believe it's open source. There's a bunch of toolset script you use that act as a connector. And basically, if I use the language of Kafka, the terminology, the way you configure it, the Mirror Maker script, it's just a bunch of config file. You're gonna have Mirror Maker listening and consuming to the data stream coming from Azure Event Hub in real time. So you configure Mirror Maker to authenticate to your endpoint, and I'll show you the config. And consuming one or multiple topic. Here in my demo, you'll see I have one topic, one event hub where I want to get data from. I'm consuming in real time from Mirror Maker. But the beauty is Mirror Maker, you can configure it to publish every message consumed from one Kafka cluster, produce the same message to another Kafka cluster on a specific topic. So that's what I'm doing. I configure Mirror Maker to produce every single message that we consume from the right side. We're gonna replicate, basically produce them in ServiceNow Kafka we're connecting to that ServiceNow gateway, and we provide this when you activate Stream Connect for Apache Kafka. All right. So I think I walked through all I wanted to discuss at the high level. A Mirror Maker in the Washington release, you don't really need to have that piece of software somewhere in a VM. Basically here in my example, I'm running this on my laptop, on my MacBook. Customer have run this in a Docker container or on a virtual machine sitting in the virtual private network in Azure. It doesn't really matter. I didn't really highlight the location of where Mirror Maker should be. I don't think it really matters, as long as you have the right firewall to communicate from both sides. In the future, in Washington, which is going to be out very quickly, in ServiceNow next release, we provide the functionality with the mid server. So we're going to have a Kafka replicator functionality that's going to basically do exactly the same thing. You're going to be able to configure the flow of data, the source, the target, and vice versa. How the flow of data should go from which Kafka topic to which Kafka topic in ServiceNow. And you will be able to configure directly in the UI of ServiceNow. And I believe that probably we're leveraging a bunch of open source Kafka script to mimic or do exactly the same thing I'm explaining here in Mirror Maker. I don't have yet the detail of how you're going to be doing it, but at least you can leverage your existing mid server for that particular replication piece. So it's going to simplify a little bit the architecture. So let's move on to the demonstration. I'm going to start by showing the Microsoft Azure Cloud and basically showing my configuration in Azure Event Hub. And then I'm going to show the configuration in ServiceNow, my configuration in Mirror Maker, and let's generate data and make sure it goes over. So we're going to see all of that. Let's start with Microsoft Azure. I created I have a trial free account. I've created a new namespace, and within that namespace, I've created a few a few event hub. The one I'm using for that demonstration is this one, and this name corresponds to the name of my Kafka topic in ServiceNow. So the name needs to match, at least the way I've configured. I'm sure they don't really have to. You can do extra configuration in Mirror Maker, but it simplifies everything if the name matches. So that's the internal name of my Kafka topic on the ServiceNow side. In that event hub, this is in that event hub where I'm going to be generating event, and I'm going to replicate those events to ServiceNow. What I've done to get that use case working, not much on the Azure side, it's pretty straightforward. I just needed to go open it basically. And you'll see here in shared access policy, there is a policy that I created, and I'll reset it because I'm going to be showing you my keys. So I've created the key, said I want to send, listen, probably I don't need manage, basically setting the permission. To configure in my mirror maker config file, I need to provide the key, so I need to provide that string. Right, and this is in a specific configuration file in mirror maker. Azure also provide, you also need the URL of that endpoint that I was showing on the slide. Microsoft, when you create your namespace, Microsoft provide you the URL for that particular namespace that you use as a Kafka cluster endpoint. And I forgot where to get it, but I will show it to you in my configuration. As I believe it's always, you start with your namespace name, and I'll show you the full address in my configuration file. So actually, maybe I start by showing my mirror maker configuration. I was showing you the Azure Event Hub. Let's see the mirror maker config file. All right. So basically, I'm working out of, I went to the Apache Kafka website and I downloaded Apache Kafka on my macOS. And with that, it's all open source, and they provide, because they created Kafka, it's all coming from Apache. So they provide all the tool set that you need to manage, replicate Kafka data basically. And I'm using the Kafka. So if I go back, I'm using this Kafka mirror maker script, and you see I'm configuring the target, Kafka consumer config. This is to point to not the target, but the source. And here it's the Kafka to connect to the target. So I'm going to repeat because I got disturbed. Here it's a consumer config file, and it point in that property file, it point to the Azure Event Hub endpoint. All right, it's my source consumer. So this mirror maker is going to read anything coming from Event Hub. All right, it's going to basically pull from Event Hub. Here it's a producer config, meaning mirror maker is going to go out, connect to the Kafka endpoint of ServiceNow, the ServiceNow gateway, and produce whatever message we consume in real time. And here, you can parameter if you have multiple Event Hub and topics. You can, put regular expression to say, hey, I want to filter out this particular topic or replicate every topic. Here, I'm basically including only one topic, so every thing coming from that particular Event Hub, I replicate over my one topic in ServiceNow. I'm gonna be showing for reference, so at least we can review this. I'm showing the config file to make it transparent and easier for people to replicate that config if we need to. All right, this is the file that I'm using for the consumer. For mirror maker, it's my property file to point to the Azure Event Hub. So the Azure Event Hub is basically providing me that Kafka endpoint that I was talking about. So this is a Kafka protocol, right? This is to point to the Bootstrap server. So Azure, every time you create an Event Hub, it looks like they publish a specific Bootstrap server, so you can consume data or produce using the native Kafka protocol. This is important. This is the consumer group ID. I got it from Azure. So I'm gonna show you where I got it from in Azure. So it's easy for someone to replicate this type of config. At the bottom, here I'm on my Event Hub. At the bottom, there's a consumer group, right? So this was needed for the configuration. Don't ask me what exactly it does on the Azure side. I'm not entirely sure. And then the security protocol. This is all well documented on the Azure website. They give you example on how to configure this. So see, basically that's the only configuration I had to do. It's very simple. And here I'm not going to show the whole string, but it's basically the endpoint key that I got on the Azure portal. When I click on my Event Hub, I go in the security policy and I can find my key. So that way, with that property file, I know Mirror Maker will be able to establish the connection to the Kafka endpoint on the Azure Event Hub side and consume message. With this configuration is the only configuration I had to do. All right, if you remember my command line, Mirror Maker also use a producer property file. For those familiar with Kafka, they already know exactly what it is. But for those new, this is a typical Kafka producer property file, nothing specific. Here I'm pointing to my ServiceNow Kafka gateway. I should probably, we have by default, we publish 4 bootstrap server. Here I just start code only 1 because it's just development testing. So this is correspond to the ServiceNow Kafka gateway. To correspond to this. And I'm showing the configuration file in Mirror Maker. We authenticate in a different way in ServiceNow for ServiceNow Stream Connect. When we publish our Kafka endpoint, we use MTLS. So this is a key store and trust store data and password that you get and you generate when you set up Stream Connect and our Kafka on ServiceNow. All right, that's basically it for that particular piece in Mirror Maker. Now I should probably show you my topic in ServiceNow, so I can show all the sites. So I'm going to show you the configuration in ServiceNow. So we've seen the Azure piece, the Mirror Maker piece, the configuration file. Just gonna show how does that look in ServiceNow, and then we can generate data and show how the data goes over. Here it's a table. It's my target table. It's a custom table I created for that use case. It's empty, but I'm gonna be sending over from Azure Event Cloud banking data. It could be anything. It could be CMDB data, outages data, pure event monitoring events. Doesn't matter. Let's go review my Stream Connect configuration. There's not much. It's pretty straightforward. Here I do have topic. So I created a topic specific for my use case. I'm using the default namespace. Actually, that's not the right one. It's called banking transaction. That's the one I'm using. And you can see there is one partition configured. It's important to make sure if you have one partition on the ServiceNow side, configure with one partition on the Azure side. At least that's what I've seen on the Azure documentation. And then I'm reading the data. So in that topic, the message will arrive in ServiceNow, and I'm using an ETL Kafka consumer to read in real time the event, those payload, and feed a bunch of tables. Well, here it's only one table, my banking transaction table. So, and I'll show you the configuration. First, let's go and generate data in Azure. So now I'm just so you can follow along. I'm here, and I'm gonna generate a bunch of data, a bunch of JSON payload. And so you can see how the data flows from Mirror Maker, how we consume in real time, and how it goes to ServiceNow, and how it goes then to the instance and feed my tables in near real time. Before I do that, I should not forget to, I think I haven't executed the mirror maker, so I'm gonna make sure mirror maker is started. And there is also other version of mirror maker. I'm using the one that's coming straight out of the Kafka binary files. I think there is mirror maker 2 you can use as well. So here is just running and listening. There is nothing that's going to happen on the screen. It's just backend stuff now at this point. It's just by running mirror maker, basically you subscribe to a specific topic in Event Hub using Kafka, and you're waiting for the data stream to happen. So now I'm going to click on my topic, click generate data. I'm on the banking transaction one. And I'm just gonna say custom payload. I'm gonna scrap this, and maybe I'm gonna put banking data. Right, here it's I want one, so I'm just gonna put the same. It's just a test, so I'm gonna put random data, but basically I've done the configuration in ServiceNow to perform the transform map and create the record in the right table and map every information key value pair, match these two columns in table in ServiceNow. And you can use a specific pre-made data set, but here I'll just use the one that I know the format will work for me. And I'm just gonna say, I don't know how much we can do in that preview function of Azure. I'm gonna put 50. When I do that, it's just gonna basically replicate that message 50 times because it's just a tasting. And of course, in real life, it's not going to be the same payload. This is just the test generated, just to do quick testing in Azure. So let's do it. If I click send, it's going to generate 50 events. It's going to be the same payload because this is a test. And now it's probably already over in ServiceNow. So let's see if that worked. So I'm going to go in ServiceNow. And maybe refresh my table. I'm going to go in the banking transaction table and see if we get data. So yes, we get data. Obviously, it's quick. You could have like hundreds of records. It's Kafka take care of queuing and everything. It's pretty fast. So here I have all my record created. As I said, it's a test, so I didn't generate sample data to have different values. It's just always the same value. So this is just to show that it works. We've seen how that. So we've seen this working. So now let's see how this is configured. So in order to get the data in ServiceNow and map this to tables, I created an ETL definition. So I created an ETL definition called banking definition. And the way it's configured, and there is a documentation to explain this. This is not just unique to Kafka, and this is a function in the platform. You basically configure the field as you expect it to arrive from the payload, so basically the path from the JSON file. All right, this is correspond to what I'm sending from Azure Event Hub, so the path coming from the JSON. And then the other one is basically the source, so the field from the source table. And here you can click, if you select the right table, banking transaction, click generate field. It just populate the field available from that table, and then you can start doing the mapping from the source, from what we receive from the data stream, the Kafka data stream coming from Event Hub. I can do the entity mapping. So if I click here, you'll see that I'm showing the mapping. Here, the mapping from the source field coming from the payload, where this should be mapped on the target record in the target table, in which order, etc. You can probably do more advanced stuff, like the value is already there, if the record is already there, and so on and so on. I'm not going to go in the detail of that because it's outside of just Stream Connect's native functionality of transform map in ServiceNow. So here we've done the ETL definition, and now we can check. Let's see if I can show you the configuration of the stream. Okay. So here I've created my consumer, my Kafka robust transform engine consumer. This is basically, now that we've done the definition of the source field, target field, and the mapping, now we can say, okay, we need to get the data. So here we're creating a stream, and this basically says I want to listen or consume data from ServiceNow's Kafka in that topic. That topic is what I have in my configuration in Mirror Maker. Message produced from Mirror Maker, message that I'm reading first from Azure Event Hub, they go to that topic. So that's where you configure the topic basically. And when this runs, you should be able to see the import set. So yeah, when was that? I'm checking the date. And I'm gonna go in a holder. I think I've generated some duplicate. Yeah, this will work. See the import row, so you can track the row that was created. Obviously, I didn't put any logic to check the duplicate and everything, so it's probably some of my issues. But here you can actually see the actual data that we consume from that particular topic, and the source, the Kafka ETL consumer, is basically us configuring the instance to read to consume data from that particular topic. So that those capabilities, those config, I just wanted to really show in deep detail the configuration on the ServiceNow side to explain how you feed the table when you consume the data from Kafka. So that's using those definition and robust transform engine configuration. So I think that covers everything I wanted to cover. It's probably too much talking, but I hope that gives you a sense of how you can achieve this. Of course, we could do on the other way. Here I covered getting data from Microsoft Azure Event Hub to ServiceNow, but you could simply produce message from ServiceNow via business rule. You can produce Kafka message in our Kafka cluster here, and you can configure Mirror Maker to change the flow. Say, hey, instead of consuming from the right side, I want to consume from the left side and send the data to produce the data to the right side. And you could do both ways at the same time. You can have many topics there, many topics there. So then it gets complicated, but you get the idea. I just wanted to show one example. So Mirror Maker in my case is configured to get the data from the right and produce the data to the left. You could do the opposite, right? And to do that on the ServiceNow side, the configuration will be creating a workflow that use our Kafka producer step or using a bunch of business rule and script. We have a producer API that you can use to produce message from a script, a business rule or server script. And that demo shows Azure Event Hub, but any system that is Kafka compatible, that exposes those endpoints, you can integrate to directly. So that's a good alternative to REST API when point-to-point API integration don't work for performance issues, or you impact the performance of your instance, or when it gets too complicated to send millions of events to ServiceNow and implement some queuing mechanisms and retry mechanisms. Kafka takes care natively of all of that, and it's scaling. And ServiceNow, as a SaaS provider, we scale our Kafka cluster automatically as well for Microsoft Azure. I'm pretty sure it's the same. They have probably some scalability embedded in their offering. All right, that was 30 minutes of me talking. I hope that was interesting, and let me know if you have any question. Bye.